Hello everyone, welcome to the first official episode of Squawk X76, where we are bringing the lives of aviation professionals to you, our viewers, so you can learn more about those who are within the industry locally and internationally. And here with me for our first episode, we have Miss Allison McIntosh, who is an air traffic controller at the Sangster International Airport and has been in this industry for the past 7 years. She attended the Bay Simpson Preparatory School, the St. Richard's Primary School, the Immaculate Conception High School, and then she went on to pursue her undergraduate degree at the University of the West Indies, Mona, and from there she went on to the Caribbean School of Theology. Now, with all of that in mind, you're thinking aviation, theology, So, the first question I'd like to ask you, what did Alison tell her parents she wanted to do with her life growing up?
Okay. Initially, as a child, I had always wanted to help people. I wanted to be a doctor. So my focus
so
was
you had a doctor,
yes,
theology, aviation. Okay.
kind of a weird track.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
okay.
But yeah, I wanted to be a doctor. I think growing up, you hear about being a lawyer, doctor. Those are the main professions. But as I got older and actually started being exposed to a lot more things, my mind changed and I went into psychology. So I didn't actually study theology, but I studied psychology, counseling psychology at the Caribbean Graduate School of Theology. So my aim was to go into helping people, and one of the ways that I thought was good would have been on a counseling side and everything. So that was my aim initially.
So, at what point did you realize that, it's actually aviation?
So I still have a very big passion for psychology. However, while I was going through UE, I had actually started doing some more jobs at the Jamaica Aviation Authority. At first I was in the HR department, and so I got to get a view of how the administrative operations were. My older sister is also an air traffic controller, and so that introduction to it kind of opened a door for me.
So your sister kind of, showed you, okay, here's the path we're going to go.
Not quite, because when she actually started, I had said I would never become an air traffic controller.
Would you look at that?
Yeah. That is it. What happened is that I saw when she was doing her training, it was very rigorous. She had exams and was stressing over quite a bit of things with the amount of information, as well as amount of exams and everything. So there was a lot that was very frightening, especially with the fact that it's a male-dominated field. She was the only female in her batch of persons that had applied and had gotten through to become an air traffic controller. So that was intimidating for me. Also, that was before I started UE. So I had my aim in becoming a psychologist, in being a counselor and helping people.
So you're saying, I'm not
that ship would pass me. But then, as I said, when I started UE and was looking for summer jobs and stuff like that, I just wanted to get some work experience. Getting that work experience, I had applied to the Civil Aviation Authority for their summer program that they had, and I went in, and the atmosphere that was there at the time was really encouraging. I was not really involved with the air traffic side, but I was on the admin side, and so getting the exposure there and understanding that, what you thought with HR for everyday businesses, there's a little bit of a difference because it's the aviation industry now, and and stuff like that. So that kind of got me thinking about the aviation field. Still wasn't looking at air traffic as yet.
Yeah, so
But
I was gonna ask you, you know, aviation the industry is vast.
mm-hmm.
So you have pilot, you have ATC, you have
Mm-hmm.
flight attendant, you have maintenance,
Yes.
engineering aspect.
Yes.
What made you look into air traffic control more?
The fact that they had a job advertisement coming up for air traffic control. I think if there was another advertisement, like they were hiring for another department or something like that, I probably would have applied, because, as I said, the atmosphere that I experienced while on my summer job, I wanted to continue that. And I had developed a relationship with some of the admin staff as well, you know. And so I felt that if I was to actually get a job there, I would fit right in, you know. But it was the job advertisement for air traffic control. And I was just like, I am not going to limit myself just because of fear. Because the fear was the intimidation of the field, the responsibility, you know, that was... Yeah, it was. But the some of the persons who I had worked with had encouraged me to apply. My sister had also encouraged me to apply, and I was just like, I'm sending out applications other places as well, and so why not? And you know, yeah. So that was the start of the real specific to air traffic control.
All right, so the school training took place at JCAA. I want to ask you, because you know you have to go through a process with sending your information and
yes.
So when you hit the interview point now, and I'm sure that they had the same question that I was wondering. So ma'am, theology. So
what?
How are you gonna tie this to aviation? What brought you here? The application. What took you to this point?
So before I had even applied, and I was looking at the fact that I'm studying psychology-based things, I had actually started doing a little bit of research as to how psychology fits into the aviation industry, and I found human factors in aviation, and I also found aviation psychology.
Okay.
Those two fields really sparked my interest, and so it has brought a new light to the psychology field and has pushed me a little bit further, because I do have a passion as well for psychology, a real deep passion for it, and especially to spread it around the island just a little bit more, in the Caribbean a little bit more, for persons to take care of themselves, you know.
Because it's a topic that persons don't like to talk
yeah,
about.
We don't.
In Jamaica, where you suppress those feelings.
Right.
We don't go there.
Yes. And then part of what also sparked my attention with aviation psychology, what I had found out is that field came up after World War II, when a lot of the pilots, a lot of the persons who are in the aviation industry actually started having PTSD symptoms, depression symptoms, stress-related symptoms, all type of psychological issues that were not really being addressed. Going to a regular psychologist can help because they're trained. However, somebody who has that background in aviation psychology has a better appreciation of the aviation industry and the stresses that come with it,
so
and how to
more about what you're really doing.
Yes, the process. Yeah,
and how to better
help guide and push it forward. One of the things for aviation personnel generally, a medical issue is hypertension.
Okay.
Because of the stress that is related to the job. Pilots, air traffic controllers, admin staff, you find that a lot of persons have elevated or high blood pressure, and so going to a doctor who knows and understands that will better be able to help guide you. You need to learn how to handle the stress a little bit better, so that your body does not react to in that type of way. So
because what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, the pilot is the one who is trying to safely transport over
Hundreds
200
of people.
at one point in time.
Mhm.
And you as the ATC, you are making sure that this batch of 200 and that batch of 200 stays safe.
Yep.
And if there's another batch of 200 somewhere out there that's kind of coming in, and you're managing all of that.
Yes.
And I know that, at local airports versus international ones, for example, like Miami,
Mhm.
where, if I'm correct, you have a plane landing every 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And they have multiple runways.
If not quicker,
Exactly.
they're very fast paced.
So that kind of environment, the gray hairs are gonna come in. But it is something that is not a very well. It's not a path
That many people
persons.
know. And the thing is that even as you think about what's happening now with COVID and everything, there's a lot of external stresses that are coming in persons' personal lives. One of the things that I have been paying attention to is the fact that a lot of pilots have been affected, whether it be loss of a job or pay cuts or those type of things. Those things have been affecting their daily lives, but it affects their work life as well. So when that happens, and even if somebody is working in the industry, they might be afraid of what if I catch COVID? What if I get sick?
Exactly. Because you're on the ground.
Exactly. Interacting, with many people.
And you have to make sure that what you're doing, you do it right, because
Mhm.
you don't want to be the one
Mhm.
who is experiencing the kind of symptoms that COVID
Exactly.
can bring on a person. So I want to ask you about your training. What was that like?
Okay, so training to become an air traffic controller. So that was very rigorous. It's a very intense process. We call it a year, give or take probably a few months, depending on different reasons. But the training takes part in about a year. 6 months of classroom training and then 6 months of on-the-job training.
Okay.
The classroom training, I would say, is the most difficult aspect of the entire thing.
Okay.
Even working daily is not as intense as the classroom training was. And the reason behind the classroom training, you're trying to fit in a lot of information, a lot of specific information. It's not an interpretation thing where you can read the sentence and you can have your own understanding of it. This is it. Right. And stuff like that. And so every Monday we had an exam. The the training institution at the Civil Aviation Authority also has their restrictions, as in you can't fail more than 2 exams or you'll be cut from the program, kind of a thing. And so there's a lot of pressure on you to succeed, to pass, to do well, and also to learn the information, because it would be that information that would be applied when you are working.
Because when you think about the medical field, right?
Mhm.
You're not just studying for sake of passing an exam.
Exactly.
You're studying so that when you're in that room with that patient, when you're possibly one of the few things between life and death for
Yep.
these persons,
Mhm.
what you do can help to make a world
Of a difference. Yes.
So for you, who's in the position where you are going to be in charge of hundreds of lives at a time.
Yeah.
You're not just studying to pass the test. You're not just studying to get a 98.
Mhm.
You're studying so that when you are out there, you help to make sure that everything that takes place
Mhm.
is done with the highest degree of safety.
Yes.
So I know that has to be something that's very important.
Yeah.
But you pass through all of that training, but in regards to school,
Yes.
were you going to school during that time while you were training, or was it because you finished with school and you had all the time in the world?
I was not finished with school. I had actually just started my master's earlier that year, before I had sent in my application to the air traffic controlling. And so at that time I was between the fence, wondering whether or not I should actually apply because of the intensity of the training, as well as the fact that I had just started my master's and stuff like that. But the good thing is that the school training ended at 5 o'clock. So it was 9 to 5 every day, Monday to Friday.
Okay.
That school training is CAA school training.
Okay.
Classroom training for my master's program that started at 6 p.m. in the days, in the evenings. And so I was able to attend my classes without having any clashes between the two. I just had to have better time management to understand how do I study for my classes versus how do I study for my job, kind of a thing.
Imagine years ago when your sister was telling you about everything and how rigorous it is and how you were saying you would never do it.
Yeah.
Because it is so stressful. And if you would just never put yourself in that position, there you were balancing both.
Yes, and probably in a worse position too.
And that is an accomplishment. I must say congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
That is something that, you have to take a moment and look at what you have achieved and what you thought you could do, what you couldn't do.
Yes, I would not do it again. But I mean, eventually I did have to take a break from school. I spoke with the administrative staff and everything just to make sure that I would still be on track to graduate and everything. But I had to make the decision that I have to put 100% of my focus into getting this job. As I even got further into the classroom training, I developed a passion for it. And then doing my own research into merging the two fields, the aviation and the psychology thing, that was motivation as well for me. And I find that I work well under stress. Even though it was stressful, it wasn't overbearing to the point of killing me, I just had to ensure that I manage my time properly. That practice, I would say, helps you on the job because you have to have time management, you have to have spatial awareness, and you have to have a level of understanding of the processes in order to bring it forward.
I see. So, you went through all of that training, all of that madness, and first day of the job. What was that like?
It was fun because so after we do all the exams and everything after on-the-job training, you are still a trainee even though you pass. So you get your results and everything. You are waiting now on your license. So I think my license took about 2 weeks or so to come through, if I'm not mistaken. And so we were still working under our training officers. So we had to be training under their licenses. While we were waiting for ours, one day the phone rang and one of the controllers picked up and they were like, okay, Alison, you're taking over. And my colleague, you're taking over. Made sure that we were up to date. Although we didn't even know that our licenses were approved and we were cleared to take solo watch. Yeah. Yeah, just start working. And then 2-2s, there was a running joke that they were going to leave us up there. So we were just waiting for the day that it was going to happen. 2-2s, they just got up, okay, you're good to go. Handed over the watch log and then they left. They went downstairs. They didn't leave because, but it was bye. Have fun. Yeah. So they actually went down to the office, laughing and having their own fun at our expense because now the nerves kick in because now we're like, oh my, it's our license now. And oh my God, we made it. The excitement of everything. I think a couple hours, maybe like an hour and a half later, they called from the office, you guys doing okay? How are things? And then one of them came back up just to make sure that we were okay because, you don't want to leave things without making sure that, yes. Yeah. But it was good. We managed and it was nerve-wracking, but because of all the times that we would have had to be on the sector previously, there was a level of comfort that was there as well. Because when I was doing, my community service at NMIA Tower when I was in sixth form, it's not the case where you're going into a typical office where you say, hello, how are you? Right.
This is how this goes, this is how that goes. It's a case where as you step into the tower, hello, how are you? Hold on a second.
Yep.
Oh, hi. That kind of thing. So it's like, it's real life, things are happening, and I know that, NMIA Tower versus
Sangster
Tower, the madness is, you have madness level 1 and you have madness level 2 over there.
Right.
So what was the madness like? Did you have any challenges as an ATC?
The major challenges would have just been like navigating the traffic.
Okay.
The airspace at Sangster is completely different than the airspace at Manly.
Okay.
And I like to think of it like if Manly Tower had the type of traffic that Sangster saw, it would be a totally different world game. If Sangster had the airspace and the terrain that Manly Tower has, it would be a totally different game. So we have the benefit of having basically a clearer path for the flights, right? So we have the hill behind us, but that's basically it. Manly Tower has the training facility. They have a lot of different terrains at different heights and stuff like that. Plus they have wind changes, the runway every minute kind of a thing. So I'm like, you guys can stay with that. I will deal with that. No, that's fine. Yeah, I'll take this. So I think it's a bit easier for me to manage this than if I was to work at Manly Tower. And so getting the flow. So for me, I just try and find the rhythm of it all and try and keep myself in that rhythm. Okay. So you have to kind of coordinate. If you're working tower, which is the air controller, those persons deal with the runway and persons who are in the air coming into land or who are departing. You have the ground controller who is in charge of the ramp.
Okay.
You have to have a kind of synergy with the ground controller so that you can keep that rhythm. You have to have that synergy as well with the approach controller who is not in the same area as you are. That synergy is over the phone, you know. But once you kind of develop that kind of rapport and that kind of beat and that rhythm, when you have the traffic picking up and everything, you just keep with the flow, and you know. And so getting that rhythm, getting that beat, getting that understanding and appreciation and being confident in yourself, I think regardless of whatever challenges will come, once you have those as the foundation, you will have no issue going forward.
Because, you know, as you would think that because being a controller at headquarters versus being at the actual airport, things are happening day to day, minute to minute, hour to hour.
Yeah.
Kind of that range is weird.
I understood, don't worry.
You know, pilots versus ATCs, you know, the interaction between them, because you have to speak to them.
Yeah.
They have to tell you what they're doing.
Yep.
So you can tell them if you can do it or not.
Yes.
So do you have any issues with stuff like that?
There have been a lot of misunderstandings over the years that I have seen, that I myself have experienced and stuff like that. One such that I was mentioning earlier, with the difference between working a helicopter versus a Cessna, right? A VFR guy coming in, the helicopter, he can go directly to his gate, right? As long as traffic allows and all of that jazz. So he can go directly to his gate. And I remember one time specifically we had a helicopter coming in, and every time the tower controller would give him his instructions, they would send him to the ground controller so that he could get the air taxi to the gate. And the pilot would never switch. And we, you know, at one point we were wondering, what is going on? Like, why is it that he's disregarding this instruction? Because, you know, with the gate, you have other aircraft that might be there or vehicles who would be accessing the area and stuff like that. It is. There's communication. Exactly. Also, the tower controller is not in charge of the ramp side, right? And so once the sectors are split in the tower, you have a tower controller who is working the runway and the aircraft that are in the air. You have the ground controller who is working the ramp, the gates, aircraft that are on the ground, right? And so to have a pilot remain on one frequency when he needs or may need instruction from one controller, it can cause a bit of an issue, especially in high traffic. But we saw the need for some familiarization flights. And so we got in touch with the pilot, and we actually worked out I think it was only one or two of our controllers that actually got to go on a flight with him to White House and back. I think it was like 20 minutes both ways. And one of the key things that he observed, and this is just one person, based on what he observed, is when the pilot is actually descending, he has to balance the aircraft, the helicopter. He cannot release one hand to switch frequencies. That made a world of a difference for us, because now we understand he has to, right, he just cannot, exactly. So what we actually ended up doing was, if there's specific instruction that is needed to give him for ground, the tower controller would then give him, but that would have been arranged before, so it wouldn't be at the moment you're trying to pass information. You would tell them previous, as I said, that synergy and communication.
And that kind of thing, as you go through day to day, different experiences, you take these individual lessons as they come along.
We had an issue with that same helicopter flight, because the hill that is directly behind us, once he reaches a certain altitude and distance from the field, radar cannot hear him. Right? There's some interference with the transmission. And so what we were having was radar calling us, you don't send over Kilo Bravo as yet, and all of that. And we're like, yes, we sent him. But in understanding from the pilot's perspective, and also him understanding from our perspective, we were able to say, okay, as soon as he's airborne, we're going to switch him. We're not going to keep him anymore. Even though he's still within our jurisdiction, we just let the approach controller know, say, hey, if he reaches X and Y point before he calls you, you are not going to hear him. So I'll keep him on my frequency until he's past it, kind of a thing. And so we were able to kind of address how we maneuver working different situations just by one familiarization flight. So
kind of thing that you're not going to see listed up in a book. That,
no, you won't. Exactly.
That happens afterwards when you do that.
Yeah.
You learn this and you just apply it and you just keep it.
You have to. Both pilots and controllers. It's not even just us. The administrative staff, even though I guess more of their things would, or systems would be a bit more set, our day-to-day lives at work would be different every day, because the weather is one thing, so you have to be flexible as much as you are sticking to your regulations, sticking to your rules, sticking to your phraseology. You have to also be flexible, because the phraseology is not going to cover every single aspect of what you might need to say, and stuff like that.
20 years going on in this year, the main thing is pandemic.
Yeah.
that's a thing.
Yeah.
So how has the pandemic impacted the industry in your lives?
Lord. There has been a lot of changes. And it's one of the things, like, as I say, like, we at the tower, we're seeing the physical aircraft. At the center, at head office here in Kingston, you are looking on a screen. But when you're at the towers, you're actually seeing the airfield. And there was such a drastic decline in the traffic that it was almost a shock to all of our systems, and even for the controllers who would be looking at the screen, because you are seeing tags for the aircraft and all of that. And so exactly, like, what is happening and stuff like that also. So it's not just about the decline in the traffic and reduction in workload. Even though there's a reduction in workload, there was a heightened level of stress, and I believe that would be across the board. The heightened level of stress not only would be because of the job, it would be because of what's happening in everybody's individual lives. I have to come, exactly. I have to go to work. I'm an essential worker. Suppose I go to work and carry back something home, because I have to interact with different people. One of the benefits for us at the towers is that we are in the new tower now for a few years. And so the walking through of the departure lounges and stuff like that. We don't have to do that anymore. And so that brought us a level of security. But, you know, what they've done or what we've agreed to, we sat down with the managers and our union and everything just to make sure that we accomplish social distancing as well as ensure that there's enough staff at the tower to work. And so when we adjusting rosters and reducing the time that you would be at work, you know, you could be impacting your salary, it could be impacting your travel time. If you have night shifts, how would the night shift work, and stuff like that. So there was a lot of changes and adjustments that almost every month there was a change because of other issues. And
Because you know, COVID is not a one set thing.
yeah,
We're learning new things about
every day.
So you know, you're learning more about okay, this is happening, and we are in this industry where we adapt to change.
Yeah.
So you're adapting to change as
Yep.
you come along.
Yep.
Especially with a pandemic. going
Yep.
on.
And then that makes it difficult for you to plan. You know, persons who probably would have taken vacation leave, or a casual day or something as a little break to kind of offset, get away from the hustle and bustle of work. It's not really a hustle and bustle anymore, but it's so sad to look out what is a normal 50, 60 flights in 5 or 6 hours. It's 1 or 2. And then because of social distancing, it might be just one person or at most 2 people in the tower at a time. That also reduces your synergy, your flow, your rhythm that you can have.
Because you know you're having you know how each person works.
Mhm.
You know how you interact with that person to get stuff done. So when you have less persons there,
Yep.
it's more the pressure is
It's
passed on.
yep. So everything is onto you. So when you're in the tower cab, you have you don't have to just work the traffic. Phones are there. If there's any issue with the ramp side or airport fire or anything like that, they're calling the tower on the phone. You have vehicles that might want to access areas and stuff like that. They are also calling at the same time. And it's so funny, even during busy times or lower periods, lower traffic periods, you will have a pilot calling or you'll have a dead period for like maybe 10 minutes or so. Nothing happening. So you get a little breath and whatever. And the moment one person calls, everybody's calling at that time. The phone is ringing, the ground person is calling in the vehicles.
So you're
And
saying, so how if you guys like plan this, just attack me?
believe me, I say that sometimes like, oh my gosh, guys, one at a time kind of a thing. A lot of the incidents that would have happened worldwide, quite a number of them happen in the slow periods of time. Your awareness sometimes can be diminished on everybody's side, not just air traffic controllers. And so when you are there and it's you alone, you have to be more aware and keep yourself a little bit more engaged. You know, if it's 3 of you in the tower, you guys can talk a bit and you guys can engage each other. Or if I say something incorrect and didn't realize it, somebody can say, no, Alison, it's runway 07, not 25, or
Because those little things matter.
those little things matter. And you can, have you ever like been doing a paper and you're writing the paper and you give it to somebody to proofread and there's a spelling error and you have reread this thing 100 times and you don't see it because your brain is wired to adjust and see what it's expecting to see. And so that happens at times when you're working. It might be that there's bad weather out there and so the runway changes, but because you're so used to saying runway 07, you say runway 07 without realizing it. And so somebody else can catch on and be like runway 25, you know? So when you are alone, that responsibility, you have to be a little bit more aware, even though the traffic is less. The personal accountability is that much higher.
Well, and of course the stress goes up with that.
And the stress can go up with that.
So, you know, you have over 7 years of experience. What do you wish that someone told you before you came into the industry that you think it would be good for persons who are listening to hear
I think this advice would more be for persons who want to come into the industry, especially as an air traffic controller. This thing is not something that is advertised every year or every 2 years, kind of a thing. They only put out advertisements when they are ready to train and take persons on in that capacity, right? But don't limit yourself. Don't limit yourself. You might have your training in math and be a math teacher, but math is one of the foundations of aviation, you know. And because of the training, they actually teach you what you need to know. So don't limit yourself to say, oh, I'm just an office administrator, or I am just a student at school. What does my degree have to do with aviation? Don't limit yourself, because the aviation industry is so vast that you can have a place. Sorry, you can have a place here. And you know, I've done a couple talks at like schools, like maybe one, a couple talks. I did one a few years ago, and you know, of course, like some of the kids, they only know about the pilot. They don't know about the background persons who are doing it. And so open your eyes, see what is out there, do a little bit more research, because the aviation industry is not just piloting and not just air traffic control. It's a number of different things that your expertise can come in very handy, you know. So push, fight, do your reading, do your research, and make your application a very strong one, because people will see the advertisement and just apply because it's another job. But if you have that passion, let that passion come out in your application. Let it be known from by the persons who you're talking to, your references, so that when they're called, they can always and truthfully say, yes, Alison, they really have a passion for it. And that passion will help push you through the training, push you through, and be that motivation for you. So, yeah.
And as we mentioned long time ago, it is evident that this is still a male-dominated field. So what would you tell a young girl like me coming up? What would you tell your girl back at Immaculate? What would you tell a young woman who is interested in taking this step, who is probably intimidated by the idea that it is male-dominated? What would you tell her about this field?
You can do it. That is one. Also, you have to be the change that you want to see. We have to be the change. It is no secret that it is a male-dominated field. Medicine used to be a male-dominated field. I think technically it still is, because you have many doctors who are still in the profession from years and years ago and stuff like that. But we have seen that change, and it's no longer a strange thing for a female to become a medical doctor. And it's the same thing that's happening in our aviation industry here. I believe the company, CAA, has made an effort to broaden their application process so everybody feels I have an equal chance. So don't limit yourself by any intimidation, any fear. Come in, do the interview, and determine whether or not this is something that you really want to do, you know. So don't limit yourself and cast yourself aside just because you're a woman and it's a male-dominated field, because I can tell you, the majority of my co-workers and everybody had been so supportive even during our training. You know, I didn't feel out of place being a woman.
Because, you know, for example, I'm currently pursuing a degree in civil engineering. It's my final year.
Yay! I can imagine.
So you know, you'd have had to do some sort of work experience, or get technical experience.
Yeah.
And I remember I went out and I was doing some construction work where I was, I wanted to be involved, because I'm saying, listen, money is being spent for me to do this.
Exactly.
You might as well know how certain things go and get a feel of it in real life, because what you learn in the classroom and what you learn in real life can be different things.
Yeah.
So I was there, trying to get involved and do what the other guys were doing, and they're saying, have a seat, relax. That's something else to do. You can like, go help them paint something inside, or maybe help them look after some food. That must be like,
Don't expect that. Don't expect that. Nope.
because you're there thinking, you know, I'm looking to learn from you.
Right.
So what's the gatekeeping? What's going on?
No, that was not my experience at all. That was not my experience in terms of observation either. This is a very individualistic job. As much as you do rely on each other and you have to have that synergy with your co-workers and stuff like that, but it's your license. It's your responsibility, right? If you can imagine it or think of it like you're learning to drive a car. Yes, you have an instructor there, they will be guiding you, but you're the one with the foot on the gas. You are the one with the foot on the brake. If you make a mistake, it's you, your responsibility. So when you hold your license, it is your responsibility, you know, as well as if you had a co-worker who was trying to quote unquote bully you or kind of dominate over you, if you make a mistake, it's not that controller's fault, it's yours. It's your license. You get what I'm saying? And so if they take over and something happens as well, it's their license. So you find that persons are a little bit more respectful of your capabilities. People were very helpful as well. I think we generally have a good relationship with each other, good rapport, good understanding and appreciation, especially at Sangster, because we're kind of separate from the base of the company and stuff like that.
So
We kind of...
You wouldn't be there if you were qualified.
Right, exactly. That's one. And the training process is very rigorous at the end of the day. So if you could not manage, you're not going to make it. And I remember the support is there. If you have a question, ask. If you're not sure or you're not certain or you're feeling a bit nervous today, talk about it. Let the person know. I had a case where one time while I was training, my training officer had given me an instruction to, you know, give somebody a departure, right? And yes. And I had somebody on final. We have our restrictions as to like 5 miles on final, that you give the landing traffic, landing clearance. But based on the situation, it would have worked out better in all of our favors to send the guy who was on the ground off. So gave him an immediate. He went on and he took forever to roll. Yes. So sometimes we are trying to give a bus, but you don't know, you as a pilot don't know that we are trying to work out a thing for you so that you don't have to sit down and wait 10 minutes, right? But you also have your duty that you need to do in the cockpit before you can roll, right? Anyway, so told him you need to depart now or vacate the runway. So I had to get stern. I remember I'm still training at this point. Right? And anyway, so he took off. As soon as his nose wheel lifted up, I gave the landing guy his landing clearance. But I had, as soon as he was off, that was when the landing traffic was touching down. I was so shaken up. But my training officer, he was aware of that. He wanted the traffic to leave as well, because as I said, the situation, I believe his off-duty time or duty time would have been expiring in like 3 minutes if he's not airborne. And if he didn't take off at that moment, he would have had a 5 to 8 minute wait, if I remember correctly. And so he had to leave, right? But because of that intensity, I was so nervous, and like, while I was working, I did what I needed to do. He said, after I gave landing clearance and sent him over to ground frequency, I was so nervous, I couldn't even talk, right? And so I think I was working just for 1 hour that day. My training officer, who knew that I would have had a reaction, he had, all right, I'll take over from you. After,
Okay, like for me, when I go to a stressful situation, normally my gut is saying I cannot accept any food. I cannot do anything until it's taken care of.
exactly.
I promise you, knowing myself, I'll be like, okay, time to go drown. Some food,
Yeah,
some sweets,
and that is it as well. Knowing yourself, knowing your limits is very important, and that is also why the relationship with your co-workers is very important as well, because even though I might be working for half an hour, something significant can happen in just 1 minute, right? And that throw my synergy, my balance off. If I continue working, I am more likely to make more mistakes. And so that puts me in problems, that puts you in problems, that put the flying public in problems. And so you have to know yourself to be able to identify when it's all right, guys, I'm going to need 15 minutes. Could you just, right? Or you might need a discussion. We sit down and we talk about it, because talking about things can help. You kind of get the stress off and be like, no, you did the right thing, or you could have done this differently and stuff like that. So yeah.
What are your methods to tackling stress?
Well, trying different recipes at home.
Okay, so in terms of the recipes, what kind of a person are you? Are you very balanced with everything, or do you stick to certain things more, or do you avoid certain things?
So for medical reasons, I've been restricting my gluten intake, wheat products, and stuff like that. And so I have had to kind of be a bit more creative where finding food is concerned, because everything have been flour. When you think about patty, fried dumpling. Yeah.
I am a very picky eater.
Me too.
So imagine me being picky and I can't eat things I actually want to eat.
Yep.
I don't know.
It's not easy, but it's doable. That's one of the things that I have tried to motivate myself with. That phrase. It's not easy, but you can do it. It's hard, but you can manage, kind of a thing. So it's an acknowledgement of the difficulty of the situation, not just where the food or the eating is concerned, but work or whatever may come up in your personal life and stuff.
Like you're being truthful to yourself, or you're
right.
Okay, this is gonna take something out of you.
Yes, but you can make it, and it's important for us to acknowledge the struggle, acknowledge where it's difficult, because as you say, I'm a picky eater as well. I don't eat seafood. I'm allergic to shellfish. No, I have allergies and whatever. And even with the wheat, sometimes you're on the road and there's nothing to eat except for Burger King or patty or a sandwich, so kind of a thing. You're gonna have to take something. So there are times when I, cheat. But I try not to do it very often, because that increases my headaches. I have migraines, so like even 4 or 5 days from eating one thing, or that if something is contaminated and I don't know, I will have a reaction. The last time, or the most recent thing I had was I broke out in hives and stuff like that. So I know that I do have an intolerance for certain foods and stuff like that. But because I've tried to use the food thing as a coping or a relaxing strategy, I try to make sure that I do a little research. I like researching different recipes, using breadfruit in different ways and stuff like that. Yes, man, it's actually quite interesting. The type of things, and then like I share my accommodation with another coworker, and so when I try different things and she likes it, it's kind of like a pat on the back, say, hey, it was
that worked.
yeah. So that is there.
I would actually that's
going to the beach is also a good strategy.
Of course,
yeah.
Because you can just take a break from sleep
yep.
all day, even though that's not a dream.
No, but you see, that is the weird thing, like if we're on the road and we see an aircraft or we see a line that indicates an aircraft, it's like, oh my God, I wonder who is that?
You knew before good 5 minutes because like an aircraft
Yes.
is like if I'm in class or maybe I'm like going somewhere talking to a friend whosoever. As I hear an aircraft, like, hold on.
Yeah. Yep. Kind of looking up, seeing.
Okay, that kind of
It's
thing.
like, oh, I wonder where he's going. Is that Kilo Bravo? Is that, and
Look
you
at
know,
me trying to see if I can read it from
yes,
afar.
yes, especially the VFRs. Like, if we're seeing them and stuff like that, if I'm on the road, yeah, yeah.
So, you know, Alison,
Yes.
this has been a wonderful session, very informative. We learned more about the person, we learned more about the young lady that went from theology to aviation. And we'd like to thank you for taking the time to spend with us.
And thank you for having me.
Very appreciative. And thank you, our viewers. Please remember to, you know how it goes, like, share, subscribe,
Comment.
give us our comments.